Hey there you guys, it's Irene Lyon here and welcome to this video, welcome to this YouTube channel if you're watching this on YouTube. What I have today is something a little bit different. It's a chat, a video interview on Skype that I do with one of my best colleagues and friends and co-creator, co-collaborator. His name is Elia. He's based out of Seattle, Washington, but he is all around the world moving and teaching and dancing and helping people get into their bodies. And we actually talk about some of his recent projects in California and one coming up in New Jersey. And we talk about the work that we do, how we met, it's a good story, and why we really decided to come together and create and curate the workshops that we do. So whenever I run a live in-person workshop, many of you might know me just from my online nervous system and healing trauma work, but before this life I taught a lot of movement, something called Feldenkrais. And I still do this a few times a year. So right now I'm recording this in August, and coming up in December is our final retreat of the year. He and I are teaching a 2-day workshop here in Vancouver, British Columbia, December 2nd and 3rd. So we are doing it again. We did one earlier in Vancouver, one in New York City in June, and this one coming up. So we wanted to just chat. I wanted you, people watching my videos who know me, to get to know him a little bit, to understand who he is, what he believes in, what his skills are. He is an amazing mover, an amazing dancer, and we also demystify what dance really means. So a lot of people will say when they come to my classes or they think about wanting to come, I can't dance, so I shouldn't come. If you are someone that believes that, be sure to watch this chat I have with him. Thank you for being here and enjoy our discussion. Take good care. How you doing?
I'm good. Happy Labor Day.
Yeah, right. So we chatted, God, a few years ago on Skype. So I'll link that video somewhere here. When we were a little younger.
A little younger, a little less wise.
Yeah. What I wanted to do is just chat about you and our work. And as we know, we work together, but those watching this might have no idea who you are.
Yep.
But we've known each other for 7 years now.
Wow, that's true. We've grown a lot.
7 years. What I'll do is I'll just tell everybody watching this that I met Elia in Seattle 7 years ago, probably to like this week or a few weeks ago.
It was in the summertime.
It was the summer. And a mutual acquaintance knew I was in town, so I was cat sitting someone's kitties, and he said, "Oh, you should come down to the gym," because this is where he worked, Zoom in Seattle. There's a guy teaching breakdancing. I'm like, okay.
That's right off the hand.
And it was you teaching.
And what was that class like? Just for people who imagine like some crazy breakdancing thing that nobody could do. Like, what was your experience when we met in that little group class?
Well, there were a few things. It was fun. It was very private because it was just me and like 3 other guys.
Yep.
One guy, well, most of them didn't have very much rhythm.
Yep.
And I remember afterwards, like the next day, my butt hurt because of all the footwork that we were doing.
Okay.
And it was really basic, but just all those little muscles in my legs just got turned on.
Nice.
And then the other thing I remember was thinking, oh my goodness, this guy knows how to teach movement. Because you had us doing things, and before you knew it, we were kind of like, it was more than breakdancing. It was like, I don't even know what it was. Like, how would you define what you were teaching that day? If you can remember.
Yeah, I think it's a cool entree into this conversation because I think the same like encounter that we had then is what we are still working with and building on, which is how do we take what we know to be healthy, fun, enjoyable, important kinds of movement and movement practices, and how do we make that accessible for everybody? I think that day was really about how do we take something and demystify it a little bit, and take something that sounds scary or too much or too advanced and make it something that is actually very doable because it is meeting everyone where they're at. So like that day we started with just little basic walking patterns.
Yeah.
music and we add a little flavor to it, and all of a sudden we're dancing, and then all of a sudden I think that movement gets elevated beyond just an exercise or a task, and it starts to feel like you're flowing. It starts to feel like there's a little groove, there's a little bounce. So all these little, like you said, micro movements and awareness of yourself in space happen inside of that simplicity when you add in the music and you add in the fun, you add in the play. I think we had some things where we had partners, and so we like little movement games that interacted two bodies, and I think that is also a really powerful way to take something that's complicated and kind of trick people into doing something they wouldn't necessarily do, you know.
Totally. It was like a trick. Because before we knew it, or before I knew it, we were doing something that a lot of people would never think to be able to do spontaneously.
I think also in that group there was a guy who had just had a knee replacement.
Yes.
I think he was in his 60s.
Yes.
And I think in that class we did a little bit of up and down inside of some of the breakdancing vocabulary, simple ways of how do we go from standing down to the ground, maybe spin around a little bit on our butt and come back up, and finding ways to make it accessible for someone that, I mean, I remember he was telling me before the class, he's like, I have this knee replacement, I don't know if I can do this. And I said, let's see how it feels, let's see how it goes. I think, you might surprise yourself that without having to force anything, you might be able to have more mobility than you think. And so throughout that, even just, I mean, he had taken a few classes with me, but inside that hour, I think we were down on the ground. I think we did some stuff on all fours, and also and then come back up to standing. And I think that's something you and I have found in our workshops, is that when you make something exploratory and curious, fun, all of a sudden new patterns come about that people didn't know that they had already inside of them. And that's so satisfying. That's so, I mean, remember that day that we met, it was like, I love that we're still doing that kind of work, because it's so satisfying to see people discover themselves.
All right, so here's what I want to, because we want to talk a little bit about the workshops that we now do together. I obviously, many people know, or maybe people don't know, I'm from a Feldenkrais background, and you're from what some would consider a dance background. And what often occurs, I find, is when people hear that, they get scared, and they think, oh, I don't dance. And here's a funny story, actually. You'll appreciate this. I've been meaning to send you this. Is a guy I follow. He's an author. His name's Ryan Holiday. I don't know if I've told you about him, but he writes more. I don't even know how you would call it, marketing, stoicism. He wrote an article a little while ago about why he doesn't drink, like alcohol. He's like, just don't ask me why I don't drink. It's not because I'm a recovering alcoholic or this. It's like, I don't drink. I don't like the taste. I never have. I've tried. And in the article, he says, because I don't drink, I pretty much will never dance.
Wow. Okay, I like that.
We get these like ideas of what dance is. It's like dance is being at a club, being all messy, or dance is at a wedding where someone's had too much cheap wine and they're just letting loose. And I read that and I'm like, that's so fascinating that he feels that he can never dance because he doesn't drink.
I don't think he's alone in that.
I know. So here's what I would love. Tell me, maybe like how you started to see dance, not from this like classic doing the tango or teaching a hip hop sequence, or because I know you can do that. You have that training, but what we do is very different.
Yeah, that's a great introduction. I think that it makes me think of something you say in the workshops that we teach, which is get drunk in your movement.
Right.
And when I think of that, I think it's very akin to that idea, is how to bring your curiosity and your awareness and your presence into what you're doing and how you're moving. And to me, that is one definition of dance. It's when you're moving with a certain curiosity and play. That to me is in that realm of dance. It's in that realm of taking something out of its exercise or task-based realm and putting it into something that is more exploratory.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to deal with self-expression. It doesn't have to even be musical, and it doesn't have to be artistic. But I think any time that you're engaged with your own curiosity, that to me has that quality of dance.
Yeah.
And so it's cool what Ryan said about I can't dance unless I'm drunk. I think the same way in the way we teach and the way we access movement and play with that with other people is this: how to get lost, how to let go, how to permit inside of your own movement this quality of looseness, this quality of flow. And so that's another way of saying drunk or drinking. That's why people, I think, can dance better.
Yeah.
Because, now I can let go of something.
Yeah.
Whether it's inhibition or maybe just my body will move in different ways. Maybe we can find that same thing through different patterns of movement as opposed to gin and tonic. Okay.
So basically, when we work, we're not feeding people alcohol. Well, no. At least not yet. I know we want to do some retreats in Mexico, so maybe some tequila will come out. But
there we go.
I really appreciate that, because one of the things that I really work with my students and my clients online and in person is this trying to undo the conditioning and the repression and the inability to be curious when there isn't a test or a project. And because of our schooling, most of us at least, we were schooled to be very rigid, very linear, very much this is what you study, this is what you do, or this is the sport, or this is the set pattern. And so I find that until someone actually joins us, it's really hard to convey in verbalization what it is that gets experienced. But thus far, we've had very few people leave after 2 days or 3 days and not be completely, for lack of a better word, woken up. And I think when I look back to our initial meeting and then our collaborations, this idea of curiosity and being in the body and using it as a tool for self-discovery is really important. And I think that's one of the things that fascinates me about humans, right, is that we have this body, and I know you're a big proponent of this, the videos that you have recorded that we'll put in a little bit of those, is that we don't need specific set patterns. We have the patterns inside of us. Like we have this spine with all these different ways that it can turn and articulate, and all these limbs that can turn and bend and extend and all this, and yet we don't know how to use it.
I think in that vein, it's the other thing that I notice in this when we teach is creating a space for people that feels safe and a space for people that feels supported and collective, so that people aren't taking this exploratory and curious step alone, nor are they doing it without the support of some really important like basic technique and foundational tools that we give them.
Yes.
And so in that sense, I think it's really cool to see that when we create that space for people, people feel more comfortable in trusting that exploration a little bit more, and they feel like it's a safe enough space to take those little risks. And that risk could be going down to the ground. That risk could be walking backwards inside of a group. That risk could be playing with your breath inside of your movement that has never felt comfortable to you. And I, as we've watched people grow inside of the workshop, or even people that have come back to multiple workshops, it's like there's this permission that they allow themselves. It's beautiful, because that's the only way that people change and transform, is when they allow it to happen inside themselves. And so I see us as really facilitators and give specific technique practice, and then also creating a space that feels welcoming, safe, and fun. I think it's like you're not doing this alone.
No.
It's not a solo journey. as a group of people here, including us, who are all committed to that.
Yeah, that whole idea of safety and permission. I was teaching a few weeks ago a little introductory workshop to the concept of Updown, which we're really showcasing now. And for those of you that don't understand what Updown means, so I'll explain that. When we've taught, Elia and I, we have realized that pretty much whether it's 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, we're constantly bringing people from up, like standing, to the floor, or from kneeling and all fours to the floor, or from the floor to kneeling, to sitting, to standing, and all the variations that a person can use to get there. And why is that important? The reason is we found that the research shows, and I'll pop up this study below in the show more section, is that when people can't do that, and when, by people I mean older adults, elderly, it determines how soon they die, so their mortality, and it also how well they age. So if you think about this, like, you know, it's kind of sometimes this joke, like, help, I've fallen and I can't get up. It's actually really important to be able to get back up when you've fallen down. And the movement, if for those of you watching, like, feel this, or maybe stand up when you're listening to this, it's a complex pattern to go to the floor, to sit there, to lay down, to come back up. It requires balance, strength, awareness. And more often than not, when you ask someone to do this, because this is often what we do at the beginning of our workshops, we call it a litmus test, right? It's like, how can you get down to the floor? And all the time, 10 times out of 10, this again happened when I was teaching the other week, there's this confusion in half of the people. They look around, right? And this isn't to make fun of anyone. This is just what I observe. It's like, because they're like, well, how am I supposed to do that? Like, and then they're, oh, that person's doing that, I'll do that. So it just shows how much we are looking outside of ourselves for permission to be in our bodies and to explore. And what I felt at the end of it was just 2 hours, we played with this with various lessons. We did it again at the end, like, okay, now go down to the floor, bring your hands to the floor. And the entire energy of the group was different. There was less franticness, there was less worry, and everybody was just curious and interested. And it was a good example that even in a few hours, you can make that shift.
I also notice in that whenever we do those litmus tests, and as they progress, whether it's multiple times a day or over the course of 2 or 3 days, the sound in the room changes.
Yes.
Like the whole tone of, like, the literal tone of the room changes, because there's a softness in the room, because there's a softness in people's bodies.
Yeah.
And so the tone that we are hearing is the tone in the tissue, and the tone in the breath, and the tone in the muscles. And I think it's such an important thing that you bring up, because I think that it's not just about getting better at going up and down, but that when you do that, you get better at breathing. Walking changes in the room after people practice going up and down. Their ability to like other forms of locomotion, or just dynamic movement in their twist or their bending, changes when they go up and down. And, you know, I think anyone watching, if you like to hike, or you like to swim or play sports, or you just want to be able to carry your groceries better up the stairs, or play with your kids or grandkids, this is, for us, the most essential practice to be better at whatever it is you already do. Apart from being healthier, living longer, it's the best healthcare.
It is. I believe that. And I like what you said about the process, in that, you know, because I was showing someone a video the other day, or a movement still of me on the ground rolling, and someone asked, oh, what kind of sequence should I do to do that? Like, they wanted like a script, or what pose is that called? That's what they asked. Because we've been so trained for yoga that they want to know, what is that called and how can I look it up to learn it? And the picture was just me rolling over on the ground the way an infant would when they're learning how to roll, the way cats roll or dogs roll on the ground. And so it's interesting when people get that permission, they start to use the principles of ease in the breath, finding the support, the reversibility, which is a bigger Feldenkrais concept, softness in the eyes, softness in the jaw, distribution through the body. And when those are there, and I think that's really, you know, if I can convey one thing to those watching, is we're teaching principles of movement so that you can take your body and move and create your own practice anywhere.
Yep.
You know, you don't need a band or a mat or a tool. This is the tool.
It's a mobile practice.
Yes.
What you said about that when you don't have a script to follow and you're not painting by number your own movement. I was having this conversation yesterday that one of the initial diagnostic tools they have for Alzheimer's and dementia is a problem or a hiccup in your gait, how you walk. Yes. And what's so cool about thinking, like, if we deconstruct that idea back to what we're working on, is in our workshops and the work we do, it's as much about improving cognition also through movement. So your ability to repattern your nervous system and literally make yourself smarter. And so the better you get at walking, about organizing your body up and down and backwards and forwards and sideways, the more we are also opening our potential for cognition and creative thought. And I think a lot of people out there who, you know, people that work in the business world, or people who want to expand their intellect or creative thinking, there's another process to that. Yeah.
And I want to say, like, that's Dr. Feldenkrais's work, which I've studied. He thought the movement was just a vehicle to gain more higher evolution in the brain. Not many people know about that, because to read that stuff means reading his texts, which are very hard to get through. But to him, the movement, if you can improve the quality of movement, if you can improve your intention and attention, and you can slow down, speed up, find a different path, cognitively attach, this is my arm, and instead of always going this way, I'm going to go that way. Instead of always flexing, I'm going to extend, and I'm going to extend to this side or that side. Because you're having a dialogue with yourself, and this is a big part of what we teach, like you said, improving that higher brain faculty. And again, this is something that gets missed a lot in the work of Moshe Feldenkrais, and this is what we're really also kind of, it's like a side effect, a really good side effect of getting into the body. And that thing about the elderly is really interesting, because when I did my research back in Australia, like 17 years ago now, I was working with elderly and teaching them exercise, and the factors that determined, again, morbidity, mortality, was a sit to stand test, to a chair, not to the ground, but to a chair, and walking speed.
Okay, great. Wow.
So how slow or fast you walk will determine, believe it or not, how well you age and your death, which is just crazy. Because without security and power and flexibility and balance, you aren't going to walk very fast, because there's a constant fear of falling.
There's something you did with your arm. This you said, okay, go this way, but how can you also say, no, I'm going to go that way, or backwards or up or down? And it brings this word agency to mind. And I think that in our 2017 world of identity politics and everyone wanting to have freedom and choice, I think if we really want to own that on a very personal level, it's how do we have more agency over our movement?
Yeah.
We have a choice of what feels good to me, and being observant enough to say, okay, I can move that way, but what if I also move that way? Or what if I slow that down or speed that up, or I pause and I just let the movement happen to me? And then creating that sort of personal agency over how we move, I think makes it fun.
Yes.
It makes it healthy because we're always following something that our body intuitively wants to do, so we're not forcing anything. And it's also, to me, that element, coming back to what dance is, it's really giving yourself agency over your own movement. And so there's a pleasure to that I think we get lost in the fitness and the healing world is this idea of pleasure and joy inside of movement. It's like, it should be pleasurable, it should be joyful. Going for a walk should feel so nice.
Lovely.
How can going up and down feel just as nice? How can breathing feel? How can bending or rolling on the ground? So all these things we play with in the workshop also comes back to, it feels good.
I want to ask a question. You were, because I know your history and what you've done in your last few years, but you were just recently outside of San Diego working with a group of people. So just talk a little bit about the stuff that you're doing it's not really on the side, it's your job. Because in addition to working with me and doing your own performances and teaching and private work and choreography, you do some really important things with groups of people. So what did you just finish up, and what are you about to do this fall?
Yeah, this is exciting. To blend these different things through our practices. I think that so I got this opportunity in October of last year with a low-income housing developer approached me and asked me to design a movement and lifestyle program for their residents, people that don't go to gyms, don't have the means to go to gyms. They're not going to be going to workshops, they're not going to have a personal trainer, and they need to move more, both for health reasons, physically, emotionally, spiritually. So I designed a 2-month program to work with both adults and kids, basically on the stuff we've been talking about, is how to bring movement and physicality to people that don't do a lot, they know what to do, and on a deep level don't feel like they don't have access to their own body.
Right.
So giving some empowerment through movement and making it collective. So these were done in group classes so that it also builds a community, and just making people see that their own capacity is inside of themselves.
Yeah.
And it's not outside. It's just a matter of opening those pathways and that latency, that's inside. It was a really powerful project for me. It was inspiring to see people really commit to themselves.
Yeah.
And to see them change over those 2 months to all of a sudden, taking a walk with their family instead of driving, or thinking twice about what snack they're going to eat because they just moved and they feel good. And it's like, I want to put an apple in my body as opposed to apple candy.
Candy, yeah.
And so the next iteration of that, going off what you were talking about in your work elderly, is this coming fall, I'm going to work with a senior community. So taking the same sort of program idea, mixing health and community and personal empowerment through movement, and working with senior citizens. So
cool.
I think that the work we do has so many outlets. It's infinite.
It is. I'm curious, when you were in that community last year, in that time, were parents coming up to you, telling you like what's changed in the household? Like, was there feedback? What was the essence that was being expressed by this new kind of way of feeling and being in their bodies?
There was a mother and daughter who took classes I did together, and one of the most profound feedbacks I got from them was that they felt like their relationship was stronger at the end of the program than at the beginning, because their communication was more open, because they had both seen each other in a more vulnerable state and also a more empowered state. And I think that having the opportunity to share something that is both highly individual and at the same time highly collaborative, it just creates a bond that it's really deep. And to have a 15-year-old teenage daughter and her mother build a relationship at a time when, as we all know, teenagers and parents don't get along so well.
No.
That was a really beautiful feedback. And another one was a woman who told me that So on the weekend we did a family class.
Yep.
So it was intergenerational, and that her kids, instead of wanting to turn on the cartoons, asked to come to the class with their mother. So these 3 kids came with their mother, and they actually, like, they looked forward to being active together.
Right.
And so, like, those little examples to me just affirm that the work we're doing is profoundly important and inspiring. So.
And it's so important because often when there's a relationship that's strained these days, you know, everyone says, oh, go to therapy, you know, and I believe in therapy. I'm technically a somatic therapist, but I've seen, and some of my colleagues have seen, that when we do this play, when we move, the communication is just, it's like in our genetics to do that kind of therapy. And I'm curious, do the older adults that you're going to go work with have any idea what they're in for? Because they're in, what are they in, Atlantic City? Is that where it was?
Atlantic City, New Jersey. They have, we've started communicating with some information about what the program will be like, and some survey questions, getting a sense of what they currently do, what they want to do, even down to the question of, like, if you don't listen to music, what music would you like to listen to? And if you do listen to music, what music do you like? Because I think it's one very easy way to connect with people. And all the way to, like, what time of day, you know, is possible for you in terms of, you know, what's your own daily rhythm and schedule. And I think that's, you know, coming back to how do we meet people where they're at, especially when you're going to their communities. You know, for me, not coming and helicoptering down and saying, oh, I know what's best for everybody, I have the answers. It's like, no, not at all. How do we establish a relationship that's based on trust and based on communication, and say, let's work with a common goal of, I'm here for you and you're here for yourself and the other people in your community. And so let's build from that. And so have some events planned. I'm going to do a couple little performances for them, because I think it's important to see the capacity of the body to elevate the human experience. You know, I enjoy that element of performance and dance, is to honor this body as a tool to go to its threshold. Also, I think it's important.
And you are a very good example of that with your movement. So that's
Thank you.
Again, hopefully I'll pop up some clips of Elia doing some spins and jumps, and I am really looking forward to our future work. Of course, this will go on to a social media site called YouTube, wherein someone might be watching this in 5 years, and who knows what we'll be doing in 5 years. Or if someone's watching this right now in 2017 leading into the fall, we'll be doing our next workshop in Vancouver on December 2nd and 3rd, which is so cool because this is the 3rd one we've done this year.
And I think
which is exciting.
What's the, you know, someone watching who doesn't know either Irene or myself or hasn't experienced what we do together, I've spent a lot of time thinking and talking about how do we best communicate what it is we do so that people come. So we take out whatever barriers people think that there are. And, you know, I think that it's an investment in yourself. You know, I think your whole job over those 2 days is to make yourself better. You know, kind of like going back to college in that sense, is like your whole job is to improve yourself. And so you're getting 2 people in us who deeply care about you and your pathway inside of the work we believe in. And so for sure you will leave Sunday afternoon better and more empowered and stronger in many ways than you came Saturday morning.
Yeah.
That's my plug on that.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a reason why we keep doing it.
Exactly.
One of the reasons why we wanted to chat was just so that we could jam on this topic. Because last time we taught, I tried to get some people to write up some experiences, and basically most said, Oh, I can't write about that. I just felt amazing afterwards, and it was the best thing I've ever done. And I'm like, okay. So it's sort of it's a tough one, because to convey it in words is almost impossible, because it's body based.
Mm-hmm.
And there are very few words to describe the level of really attunement a person gets when they're in their body, listening to their movements, flowing in a different way. People just kind of, often sometimes they'll say it just feels more human or more animal-like, right? Which is a big part of what we teach, is how would you walk on all fours, getting back to those roots. So it's very exciting.
I think the postscript I wanted to mention is that apart from all the movement practice that we've been talking about, it's so cool to see over the course of even the first day and then the second day, and especially the times when we've done a third day, is this internal community that gets built. The people that don't know each other, all of a sudden they start having lunch together, and all of a sudden they start having coffee before together, and all of a sudden afterwards they're finding ways to meet up and to continue, a joint personal practice together. And I think that, how do we find our tribe? How do we find people that we like to connect with? How do we just feel more open with going up and talking to someone and saying, hey, this is my name, this is where I'm from, who are you? I think we've seen that happen in these workshops that we've done. I think that in today's day and age is essential, is to feel like you're not alone, especially not alone in a desire and a practice to get better, So that is a huge reason to come.
Well put.